Hi, I am Johnny Green, and I'm going to be talking about how I grew as a reader and what I learned in English 201. First off is understanding the reader response theory. I think that this was very helpful in the semester because at first, I didn't really like this idea of doing extra work after reading a short story or reading a poem, and I wasn't really interested in going over what I read. But I think that as I went on, I really understood these stories better, and I understood the literature. In these reader response theories, it makes you get the most out of this literature. Usually, as you're reading, I felt that I was uninterested before I used this, but when I started implementing this into my reading, I was constantly asking questions about what I'm reading, why I'm reading it, who wrote what I'm reading, and I think that a big part of it was reading the text twice. And for instance, in the short story Sonny's Blues, there was a flashback that happened in the reading, and as I read, I was confused. I kind of got lost when it was brought up, but reading it a second time helps, and you understand the story better in retrospect. And it's important to ask these questions about the author and about the setting and the characters in the literature. Next is reading strategies and, what I found was most comfortable throughout the semester, what I didn't like, and what I did like. I think that, as I was reading, I had trouble annotating at first, getting a grasp on what I liked. But as I went on, I thought that, underlining words that I didn't understand, reading the story twice, as I already mentioned, and highlighting important quotes was important because as you're reading, it's hard to be engaged at things that you're not interested in, but you can make it interesting, by organizing your thoughts in the literature in a book. And that is what I did. I thought that, color coding and highlighting my thoughts throughout the book, it was easy to go back after I'm done and, remember what I was thinking and why I was thinking that. And as far as like, the critical analysis documents went, I thought that, finding out the rhetorical devices and, explaining them in the literature, going back and understanding them better, that helped a lot too because, as you're reading it, sometimes these things go over your head and you don't really appreciate it, but you see, how complex the story really is. I think that Flipgrid helped a lot in this semester, and it's going to help, moving forward in my life. And just going, away from, a literature standpoint, I think that it makes me publicly speak better, in a world where there's a lot of Zoom calls and, private meetings over video chat. I think that, as I was talking about literature in these Flipgrids, I would get aggravated at myself, when I would say or if I said like, because I made it, competitive to the point where I didn't really want to mess up. And I think that, having Flipgrid, which is, easily accessible and you can restart over and over again, I think that I learned a lot because I changed the way that I spoke, and I wouldn't necessarily write a script before I spoke, but I would have, key points and I knew what I wanted to say about this. But at a certain point in time, I really focused on using professional words, having a good background, and, making sure I'm making eye contact and just talking about the right things. A connection that I had, with my critical thinking class was as I was reading Superman Knocking Down the Door, and it was talking about, how the world has its own region of fences, and that what makes the world go round. It was, really touching, to be honest. I think that I thought about the purpose of life when I read this, and I really thought about, who's around me, why they're around me, and what they're doing. And it kind of highlighted, time management and goal settings as I learned in critical thinking because, you have to live your life as, you're not guaranteed another day. You're not guaranteed waking up, and we have to be grateful for what we're living with. And I think that time management and setting goals has a lot to do with that. And learning and critical thinking, I think that in this semester I really got a grasp of planning ahead and setting goals and having some sort of satisfaction at the things that I achieved. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is a challenge that I had, and it was during a Langston Hughes poem when I was analyzing it, and it was The Negro Speaks of Rivers. And as you can see, this is how I kind of organize my thoughts. I like to highlight them in colors, but one thing that really challenged me in this was the repetition of the word rivers. And I couldn't really figure out what the word rivers was exactly representing. I had a bunch of ideas, whether it was the world or society or Earth itself or a certain race, but I had trouble with finding a distinctive answer, and I think that I used the internet to help me to really nail it down, that it was the Earth, and how history, a relationship between history and oppression was shown in the poem. My most memorable experience is definitely the Ekphrasis poem, and I think that I was able to express, my feeling and artwork, and also I was very confident and comfortable with my writing. And I chose a piece of artwork that is called The Boating Party, and I thought that it was really, exciting to write this because I was able to pick anything that I wanted and express my feelings on it. And I thought that, it was really the writing was very heartfelt. And this picture, as you can see, it kind of, what I wrote about theme wise is that, this artwork, this painting, it's about, family, sacrifices, immigration, and, like starting a new life. And I thought, implementing the rhetorical devices that I learned all semester in reading poems, it was just, a good feeling when you're proud about, your own writing. And I think that, I even texted my own mom after I wrote this, and I shared my work with her, and she loved it as well. But I think that, these are the moments in, school and English class that you really need to, it makes you appreciate literature itself. My aha moment of the semester was definitely after I read this short story, Cathedral. And, after I closed this book, after reading it a second time, something clicked. And I don't know if it was, just because the story took place in Connecticut, but more importantly, I think that it was the theme of human connection in this book and in this short story. And I think that, the beginning of the story, a blind man is invited over to a household by a wife, and the husband, isn't really too happy about it, and he's prejudiced, he's making judgments. But this, piece of literature really makes you appreciate the world that you live in. And after I read this, I kind of, thought back on the times where I could have done things better and what I need to do better going forward in life. And I like, how this story has a theme that no matter what you look like, no matter if you have a disability, that you can have human connection. There's always going to be room for human connection. And I think that Raymond Carver, did a great job, implementing his thoughts on, human connection and using them in a story that had some, conflict, but these two people got over it, and it showed, the true meaning in life and the purpose of life, which is, getting together with one another, taking away the differences that you guys have. And these are my references for the pictures that I used.